Okay, again, there can be some other flavors, if you will, of project managers or project managers with different levels of authority. So in weak matrix organizations, the person running the project is typically not called a project manager and does not have all the powers that we were just describing in the previous slide. So typically, this project coordinator in weak matrix does not have any budgetary powers. They only have a very little bit of power. They've got the power to shift people around into different roles. So now they still are accountable. They are accountable for the success of the project. They are accountable for the project management plan and even the execution by the team against the plan to see that work is done. They can never blame somebody else. So if things go wrong in the project, they can't blame other people, but they don't have all the powers that you would really like to have in most situations to kind of ensure things get done. So there's more pressure on this type of project manager, the project coordinator, to use those personal effectiveness skills, those people skills to get things done. Okay, again, this type of project manager that we would find in weak matrix, perhaps functional, is not called project manager. They're either called coordinator or expediter, and they're also not full-time on projects. They're part-time project managers. They've got another job that they're doing. So let's go through some examples of types of situations that you might see on the test. So many of us have sometime in our past probably worked in this capacity as a project coordinator or something close to it in a matrix organization, and I certainly did. So working in HP support, HP services, I was managing data center relocations, but I was borrowing all of my resources from other functions, from other departments. And I did not have as much power as those functional managers, as department managers. They controlled the budget. They had really the decision-making authority on the use of the resources. So in trying to get the right resources on my project, I'm using all those personal effectiveness skills, those soft skills, those people skills to try to get things done. So in one of my data center relocations, we were moving, in addition to all the servers and the other peripherals, we were moving a SAN, the storage area network, for this large hospital. And that's kind of the crown jewels of the architecture for this infrastructure. And I needed a SAN engineer, someone that understood this appliance, this architecture very, very well, and could write up the plan of how we were going to move this SAN. It's not something you just unplug, move it, and plug back in again. This must be done very, very carefully. And we built in probably over $15,000 into this data center relocation to write up a plan of how we were going to move this SAN, the storage area network device. And the plan was we were going to all meet in Norfolk, Virginia on a Friday afternoon and all get together at the hotel where we were all going to be staying over the weekend and kind of just go through the last minute details on the plan and then go to the customer site in the evening and start the work. Well, the SAN engineer that I had all signed up to write this plan and to oversee the deinstall and the reinstall of this equipment, he actually calls me up the Wednesday before we were supposed to start, and he says, well, we've got an emergency out here in the Chicago office, and my boss has pulled me off your project. And I know that really puts you in a bind. I wish I could help. I can give you some names of some other people that I think might be able to step in and help. So I don't have the power to tell this SAN engineer that that's flat out unacceptable, that he cannot do that. So I cannot tell him. I've got to find out some other way to solve this problem. So what do? I have to use those personal effectiveness skills. So I say to him, okay, before you cancel any air travel reservations or change any parts of your travel plans. Don't do that. We're going to get on a conference call. I'm going to set up a conference call for as soon as I can with you, your manager, my manager, and the sales manager for this account. And we'll discuss next steps for what we're going to do with this big relocation operation that's supposed to start in 2 days. So there's this uneasy silence on the other end of the phone, and he just then sheepishly replies, I'll be there. Okay, I'll be there. So basically, I've escalated the situation. He knows that I don't have the power to tell him that he can't cancel his plans, but he knows the sales manager for the overall account certainly can and certainly will. Even though this data center relocation wasn't a big deal for our company, a $95 billion company at the time, this was only a $150,000 data center relocation. For the sales manager for this account, there was probably more than $5 million in the funnel for this account, and there was no way the sales manager was going to jeopardize that, let any risks harm that chance of damaging that funnel. So he knew that was going to occur, and he just agreed to go along with the plan. So that weekend, while we were doing all the work, I found out the real reason for this major escalation in Chicago and why he first said he couldn't come. He had forgotten about his daughter's birthday party, and he was in deep trouble at home because he had forgotten about that. Okay, the project expediter is even less empowered than the project coordinator. We typically, classically, we would find the project coordinator as somebody running a project in weak matrix, and the expediter was the person assigned to run the project in functional organizations. And this is the lowliest of the project management roles. Again, like the coordinator, this person is not called project manager and is not full-time on projects. They have another real job. So this lowliest of the project manager roles really has no power at all. They're just a glorified administrator. They're checking on the status of the work packages, and they're reporting the status back to their boss, the functional manager. Okay, let's get back to discussing the default role of the project manager. Again, we said by default, if they don't say anything different, then we're assuming we're a project manager in strong matrix or balanced matrix, and we're quite empowered. We've got, in strong matrix, we've got budgetary powers, and we also have quite a bit of influence on the resources. To be successful, as we said in earlier slides, we need quite a bit of knowledge. The knowledge that's discussed in the 10 knowledge areas. So how to get requirements and roll that up into a scope statement and build a WBS, build the schedule, do cost estimating, build budgets, and do all the other work in all these other knowledge areas. But having all that good book sense is not just enough. We've got to be able to perform against that, execute against that. And a huge part of that is the people skill part of the equation. So successful project management, effective project management is more about the EQ part of the equation than the IQ part of the equation. So this was all discussed in the earlier versions of the PMBOK guide. Now in version 6, PMI is kind of shifting this discussion, and they're saying, instead of talking about knowledge versus performance versus personal effectiveness, now we're breaking out the skill sets that we must have as project managers between technical skills, leadership skills, and strategic skills. So let's delve into this some more.